Good evening, everyone. Let's talk about something that strikes at the core of our relationships with others and with ourselves. It's about learning when to let go. Don't beg, don't chase, don't write, and don't call it sounds tough, doesn't it? But sometimes the most powerful choice we can make is to stop forcing what isn't meant to be. Self-worth is the foundation upon which every meaningful relationship is built, yet it's often the first thing we compromise in the pursuit of approval. It's tempting to chase after someone's acknowledgement, to bend, to shrink, or even to change parts of ourselves just to be chosen, accepted, or loved. But what does that really cost? When we prioritize someone else's validation over our own sense of worth, we send a quiet message to ourselves: you are not enough as you are. And that message, though silent, echoes loudly in our hearts. True self-worth isn't about arrogance or dismissing others. It's about knowing that your value is not contingent on someone else's opinion or behavior. It's recognizing that you don't have to beg for a seat at a table where you're already worthy of being invited. Approval, when sought from others, is fleeting. It comes and goes depending on circumstances and emotions that are often outside of our control. But self-worth, that's internal, unshakable, and rooted in your inherent value as a human being. When we prioritize approval over self-worth, we step into a cycle of dependency. We begin to measure our value based on how someone else sees us or treats us. A lack of a response from someone can make us question our significance. A dismissal can make us feel invisible. But when you root yourself in self-worth, these external factors lose their power. Their approval or lack thereof becomes less about you and more about their own capacity to see your value. And here's the truth: no amount of approval from someone else can compensate for the lack of it within yourself. Even when someone validates you, if you don't believe in your own worth, their words will feel hollow. You'll always be chasing, trying to fill a void that only you have the power to fill. That's why self-worth isn't just important, it's essential. It's the antidote to the exhausting chase for approval. Choosing self-worth means standing in the truth of who you are, even when it's uncomfortable. It means showing up authentically, knowing that not everyone will see or value you, and being okay with that. It's about trusting that the right people, the ones who truly belong in your life, will recognize and appreciate you without you needing to prove anything. When you embrace your self-worth, you stop looking outward for affirmation and start nurturing it from within. You give yourself permission to take up space, to set boundaries, and to let go of relationships that require you to diminish who you are. And in doing so, you create space for connections that honor you fully, connections that don't demand you sacrifice your dignity or peace for approval. At the end of the day, the approval of others is fleeting, but the relationship you have with yourself is lifelong. Choose to build it on a foundation of self-worth solid, unshakable, and unapologetic. You are already enough. Always have been, always will be. Boundaries are not walls meant to keep people out. They are bridges to healthier, more meaningful connections. At their core, boundaries are about respect for yourself and respect for others. When you set boundaries, you're not being cold, unkind, or difficult. You're making a powerful statement: I value myself enough to define what I need, and I trust others enough to honor that. The beauty of boundaries lies in their dual nature. They protect you, but they also invite others into a relationship built on clarity and authenticity. When you set a boundary, you're drawing a line that defines where you end and another person begins. It's not about separation, it's about understanding. You're giving others the opportunity to interact with you in a way that's healthy and sustainable. Many people hesitate to set boundaries because they fear rejection or conflict. They worry that saying no will push people away or that they'll be perceived as selfish. But the truth is, boundaries are an act of love for yourself and love for the people in your life. Without boundaries, relationships can become murky and resentment can build. When you constantly say yes to things that drain you, you're not doing anyone a favor. You're showing up half-heartedly, which doesn't serve you or the people you care about. Boundaries are empowering because they teach you to prioritize your well-being without guilt. They remind you that your energy is precious and that you have the right to protect it. When you say no to something that doesn't align with your values or needs, you're actually saying yes to yourself. You're choosing to honor your time, your energy, and your peace. But boundaries don't just empower you, they empower others too. They set a standard for how you deserve to be treated, and in doing so, they encourage others to rise to meet that standard. They create a roadmap for healthy interactions, free from guesswork and misunderstandings. And when someone respects your boundaries, it deepens trust. It shows that they value you not just for what you give, but for who you are. Setting boundaries can be uncomfortable at first, especially if you're used to putting others' needs before your own. You might face resistance or pushback from those who benefited from your lack of boundaries. But the discomfort is temporary, and the freedom it brings is life-changing. When you stand firm in your boundaries, you reclaim your agency. You stop living reactively, bending to the demands of others, and start living intentionally, guided by your own needs and values. Boundaries are not ultimatums or punishments, they are invitations. They invite healthier dynamics, deeper connections, and a stronger sense of self. They empower you to show up fully in your relationships because you're not overextended or resentful. And they empower others to do the same because they know where they stand and what's expected. In the end, boundaries are a gift. They protect your peace, honor your worth, and create the conditions for relationships that truly nourish you. They are an act of courage, a declaration of self-respect, and one of the most empowering tools you can use to build a life that reflects your values and honors your heart. Stillness is often misunderstood as passivity or inaction, but in reality, it is one of the most profound acts of strength and clarity. In a world that glorifies busyness and equates movement with progress, stillness can feel counterintuitive, even uncomfortable. Yet it is in stillness that we find our center, reconnect with our deepest truths, and make room for clarity and transformation. The power of stillness lies in its ability to silence the noise, not just the external chaos of the world around us, but the internal chatter of doubts, fears, and insecurities. When we allow ourselves to be still, we step out of the frantic pace of doing and into the quiet state of being. This shift is powerful because it reconnects us with who we truly are beneath the roles, expectations, and distractions. Stillness isn't about disengaging from life, it's about engaging more deeply. When we stop chasing, overthinking, or reacting, we create space to listen to ourselves, to others, and to the subtle but profound wisdom of life. In stillness, we realize that we don't have to force outcomes or grasp at control. Instead, we can trust the natural flow of things. What's meant for us will find its way to us, and what isn't will naturally fall away. There's a deep courage in stillness because it requires us to face what we might otherwise avoid. When we stop moving, we come face to face with our own thoughts, emotions, and fears. This can be uncomfortable, but it's also where growth begins. Stillness invites us to sit with our discomfort, to understand it, and ultimately to transform it. It's in these moments of stillness that we learn resilience, self-awareness, and self-compassion. Stillness is also a powerful teacher of patience. It reminds us that not everything requires our immediate intervention or response. Sometimes the best thing we can do is wait for the right time, the right answer, or the right person. In stillness, we learn to let go of the frantic urge to chase what isn't ready for us, and to trust that what is meant for us will come when the time is right. In relationships, stillness allows us to step back and observe rather than react. It gives us the space to evaluate whether we are pursuing something or someone out of fear or genuine alignment. When we stop chasing, we allow others to show us who they truly are. We create room for reciprocity, where connections are built on mutual effort rather than force. The beauty of stillness is that it's not about doing less, it's about experiencing more. It's about noticing the things we miss when we're constantly in motion, the quiet strength of our intuition, the gentle whispers of our heart, and the subtle signs that life is always guiding us. Stillness helps us see that we don't have to push so hard to make things happen. Sometimes the most powerful action we can take is no action at all, just being present, aware, and open. In the end, stillness is not a retreat from life, it's a way to live it more fully. It teaches us to trust ourselves, to honor our own pace, and to find peace in the spaces between the noise. Stillness is where we find our power, not in the doing, but in the being. And that is where true transformation begins. True connection thrives in an environment of mutual respect, understanding, and authenticity. It is not something we can force, beg for, or manipulate into existence. Yet, in moments of vulnerability or fear, it's easy to slip into desperation, grasping at relationships, overcompensating, or chasing after those who may not be aligned with us. But here's the truth: connection built on desperation is not connection at all. It is dependency, and it comes at the cost of our peace, self-respect, and emotional well-being. When we approach connection from a place of desperation, we are often seeking to fill a void within ourselves. We may be looking for validation, trying to avoid loneliness, or attempting to cling to someone who represents safety or significance. But desperation is rooted in fear, not love. It clouds our judgment, making us settle for less than we deserve or stay in situations that don't honor our worth. Instead of fostering true connection, it creates imbalance where one person gives too much, while the other may not even show up fully. Connection without desperation, on the other hand, is grounded in self-awareness and self-worth. It starts with the understanding that you are whole and complete as you are. When you truly know your value, you no longer feel the need to chase after relationships or prove your worth to others. You approach connection from a place of abundance, not lack, knowing that the right relationships will naturally flow into your life when you honor yourself. This kind of connection is marked by reciprocity and effort from both sides. It doesn't require you to overextend yourself, sacrifice your needs, or compromise your boundaries. Instead, it's about showing up authentically and inviting others to do the same. It's about mutual interests, shared values, and the willingness to meet each other halfway. When desperation is absent, connection becomes an equal exchange, one where both people feel seen, valued, and respected. Letting go of desperation also allows you to embrace patience. It frees you from the urgency to make things happen on your timeline and gives you the confidence to trust the process. You begin to recognize that what's meant for you will not require you to beg, plead, or chase. The relationships that are truly aligned with you will feel natural and effortless, not forced or strained. Connection without desperation is also about discernment. It's knowing when to lean in and when to step back. It's understanding that not everyone will be the right fit for your life, and that's okay. Instead of clinging to what isn't working, you learn to release it with grace, making space for something better. This kind of clarity comes from trusting yourself and honoring your own needs and boundaries. In relationships, connection without desperation creates a foundation of trust and respect. It allows you to show up as your authentic self, without the need to impress or perform. And when others see you standing confidently in your truth, they are drawn to you in a way that is genuine and lasting. Desperation repels, but authenticity attracts. Ultimately, connection without desperation is about freedom. It frees you from the exhausting cycle of seeking approval and allows you to embrace relationships that are rooted in love, respect, and mutual effort. It's a way of saying, I value myself enough to wait for what is real. And I trust that the right people will value me too, and in that space of trust and self-assurance, the most meaningful connections are born. Rejection, though often painful, holds a transformative power that we rarely recognize in the moment. When someone or something we desire says no, it can feel like a door slamming shut on our hopes, our plans, or even our sense of self-worth. But rejection is not a verdict on our value, it's a nudge, a redirection towards something greater, something more aligned with who we truly are and where we're meant to go. In the raw moments following rejection, it's natural to feel hurt or question ourselves. Why wasn't I chosen? What could I have done differently? These questions often come from the mistaken belief that the rejection defines us or diminishes our worth. But the truth is, rejection is rarely about our value and more often about compatibility, timing, or alignment. What doesn't work out isn't a reflection of our inadequacy, it's a sign that the path we're on isn't the right one, or that the people involved aren't meant to walk it with us. When we stop viewing rejection as a loss and start seeing it as redirection, everything changes. It becomes less about what we're leaving behind and more about what we're being guided toward. Rejection is life's way of clearing obstacles we might not even realize are in our way. It's a course correction, an opportunity to pause, reflect, and recalibrate our trajectory. Sometimes it's the only way we'll let go of something we're clinging to that no longer serves us. Rejection challenges us to trust the bigger picture, even when we can't see it. It asks us to release our grip on what we think we want and open ourselves to possibilities we may not have considered. Often, the very thing we feel we've lost pales in comparison to what lies ahead: relationships that align with our values, opportunities that honor our gifts, and paths that resonate with our purpose. This shift in perspective doesn't mean dismissing the pain that comes with rejection. Feeling hurt is natural, and it's important to acknowledge and process those emotions. But once the initial sting fades, rejection becomes an invitation to grow. It teaches us resilience, reminding us that we can endure setbacks and emerge stronger. It pushes us to examine our desires and motivations, to ask whether what we were chasing was truly meant for us or if it was rooted in fear, ego, or societal expectations. Rejection also serves as a mirror, reflecting areas where we can grow or refine ourselves. It's not about fixing something that's wrong, but about evolving into a fuller version of who we are. Maybe the rejection was about timing, about preparing us for something we're not quite ready for yet. Or maybe it was about clearing space for a better opportunity to come into our lives, one that aligns more deeply with our unique gifts and purpose. Rejection isn't just about endings, it's about beginnings. When one door closes, it's often because another, better door is waiting to open. And while we may not see it immediately with time and perspective, we often look back and realize that the rejection was a blessing in disguise. It steered us away from what wasn't meant for us and toward what was. The key to embracing rejection as redirection is trust. Trust that you are enough even when others don't see it. Trust that life has a way of working things out even when it feels uncertain. Trust that every no is a step closer to the yes that truly matters. And trust yourself to keep moving forward even when the path is unclear. In the end, rejection is not the end of your story. It's simply a plot twist, a moment that reshapes your journey in ways you might not yet understand. And when you allow yourself to lean into the redirection, you open the door to possibilities far greater than anything you could have planned. Rejection is not your failure, it is your guide. Silence is often misunderstood. In a world that values loud voices, constant communication, and quick responses, silence can be mistaken for weakness, indifference, or passivity. But silence has its own language, and when we learn to speak it, we discover a power that words can never convey. Silence is not the absence of expression, it is a deliberate and profound form of communication that holds space for clarity, strength, and wisdom. When someone chooses silence in the face of conflict or chaos, it's not necessarily avoidance or resignation, it's often an act of strength. Silence gives us the space to reflect, to assess a situation without the noise of impulsive reactions. It's in the stillness of silence that we regain control over our emotions and thoughts. Rather than letting anger, frustration, or fear dictate our words, silence allows us to pause, breathe, and respond intentionally. There's also an undeniable dignity in silence. When faced with disrespect or provocation, choosing silence can be the ultimate act of self-respect. It says, I do not need to engage to prove my worth or validate my truth. Silence doesn't mean you're letting someone walk over you. It means you're choosing not to step into the chaos they're creating. It's a boundary, a shield that protects your peace and energy. Silence also has the power to reveal. In relationships, silence often speaks louder than words. It highlights dynamics that we might otherwise overlook. When you stop filling the gaps with explanations, reassurances, or justifications, you give others the space to show you who they really are. In the quiet, their intentions and character become clearer. You begin to see who is willing to step forward, to communicate honestly, and to meet you halfway, and who only engages when it serves their agenda. In moments of silence, we also connect with ourselves. The noise of the world often drowns out our own inner voice, making it difficult to hear what we truly need or want. Silence creates a space for introspection and self-discovery. It's in those quiet moments that we uncover our deepest truths, confront our fears, and find clarity about our next steps. Silence is a teacher, offering lessons that no external voice can provide. Silence isn't about suppression or avoidance, it's about choice. It's about deciding when to speak and when to hold back, when to engage and when to withdraw. It's about understanding that not every moment requires a response, not every argument needs to be won, and not every relationship deserves your energy. Silence is a reminder that your power doesn't lie in how loudly you speak, but in how wisely you choose your words or your lack of them. There's a certain mystery and strength in silence that draws people in. It disrupts the expectation of constant dialogue and forces others to pay attention. In a conversation, a pause can hold more weight than 1,000 words. It creates space for reflection, for connection, and for meaning to emerge. Silence challenges others to sit with their own discomfort and to meet you in a space of honesty and vulnerability. Silence also speaks to resilience. It's the quiet strength of knowing when to let things unfold without interference. It's the confidence to stand firm without the need to justify or explain yourself. It's trusting that the truth doesn't always need to be spoken aloud to be understood. Sometimes the most profound statements are made in the spaces where no words exist. In the end, silence is not emptiness, it is fullness. It is a pause, a presence, a choice. It is a way to protect your peace, honor your boundaries, and connect with your inner self. Silence, when used intentionally, becomes a powerful tool way to communicate strength, create clarity, and preserve dignity. When words fail, silence speaks, and its voice is unshakable. Authenticity is one of the most liberating choices we can make, yet it's often overshadowed by the desire for approval. From a young age, we are conditioned to seek validation from our families, our peers, our workplaces, and even strangers. We're taught to mold ourselves into what others expect or want, believing that their approval will give us a sense of worthiness. But the truth is, no amount of external approval can ever replace the peace and power that comes from living authentically. When we prioritize approval over authenticity, we trade who we are for who we think we need to be. We wear masks, adjust our words, and dilute our truths to fit in or avoid rejection. This might win us temporary acceptance, but it comes at a cost. The more we suppress our authentic selves, the more disconnected we become from our own values, desires, and identity. Over time, this disconnection breeds resentment, exhaustion, and a lingering feeling of emptiness. Authenticity, on the other hand, is an act of courage. It's choosing to show up as you are, even when it's uncomfortable or risky. It's saying, this is who I am, and I trust that it's enough. Living authentically means embracing your imperfections, owning your story, and honoring your unique voice. It's not about being perfect, it's about being real. When you choose authenticity, you may lose some approval. But what you gain is far more valuable freedom. You're no longer bound by the expectations of others. You don't have to exhaust yourself trying to meet standards that aren't your own. You stop measuring your worth by how much you're liked or accepted. And instead, you start living in alignment with your own truth. Authenticity also has a way of attracting the right people into your life. When you show up as your true self, you give others the permission to do the same. You create relationships that are built on genuine connection, not on pretense or performance. The people who resonate with your authenticity will stay, and those who don't were never meant to walk your path. This filtering process can feel lonely at times, but it's essential for cultivating relationships that truly nourish and uplift you. Living authentically requires self-awareness. It asks you to pause and ask yourself, am I doing this because it's true to me, or because I want someone else's approval? It's a process of peeling back layers of conditioning and rediscovering who you are beneath the roles, labels, and expectations that society has placed on you. It's about finding your voice, your values, and your worthiness not in how others see you, but in how you see yourself. Authenticity is not always easy. There will be moments when standing in your truth feels vulnerable, even frightening. You might face criticism or rejection, and that's okay. Those moments are not a reflection of your value, they're a reflection of others' discomfort with your courage to be real. Authenticity isn't about pleasing everyone, it's about honoring yourself. When you choose authenticity, you also inspire others. Your courage becomes a mirror showing people that they too can let go of their masks and live more freely. Authenticity is contagious because it reminds us all of the freedom that comes from being who we are. It's a gift you give to yourself and to the world. In the end, authenticity over approval is about choosing to belong to yourself first. It's about trusting that who you are, as you are, is enough. It's a declaration that your worth is not up for debate, and that you'd rather live a life of integrity and truth than one dictated by the fleeting approval of others. Approval might bring temporary comfort, but authenticity brings lasting peace. It's the foundation for a life that feels real, meaningful, and fully your own. Fear has a way of taking hold of our decisions, shaping our actions, and keeping us stuck in patterns that don't serve us. When fear drives our choices, we often act from a place of scarcity, self-doubt, and desperation. We cling to relationships that are no longer healthy, chase after opportunities that don't align with our values, or overextend ourselves to gain approval. Fear whispers lies telling us that if we don't act now, we'll lose something vital or that we aren't enough as we are. But fear-based actions, while they might feel urgent in the moment, rarely lead to outcomes that bring peace, fulfillment, or growth. Letting go doesn't mean ignoring fear or pretending it doesn't exist. Fear is a natural human emotion, and it often signals that something important is at stake. The goal is not to eliminate fear, but to stop letting it dictate your actions. This starts with creating space between the fear and your response. Instead of reacting impulsively, take a moment to breathe, reflect, and ask yourself, am I making this choice out of fear or out of love and trust? Fear-based actions often lead to short-term solutions, but long-term dissatisfaction. They keep us in a cycle of anxiety and insecurity because they don't address the root of our fears. They simply try to mask or outrun them. On the other hand, actions taken from a place of trust and alignment might require more patience and self-discipline, but they build a life that feels stable, authentic, and deeply fulfilling. Letting go of fear-based actions also means releasing the need to control every outcome. Fear thrives on the illusion that if we just try hard enough, we can force things to go our way. But control is an exhausting and unsustainable strategy. When we surrender the need to control and instead trust that life will unfold as it should, we free ourselves from the weight of constant vigilance and anxiety. This doesn't mean passivity, it means taking aligned, intentional action and then allowing the results to unfold without clinging to them. One of the most profound shifts that happens when we let go of fear-based actions is that we begin to attract what is truly meant for us. Fear pushes us to chase, to cling, and to strive, but trust allows us to receive. When we stop acting out of desperation, we create space for the right opportunities, people, and experiences to come into our lives. We stop settling for less and start aligning with more. Fear is not your enemy, it's a signal, a teacher, and an opportunity to grow. But when you let it dictate your actions, it keeps you small, stuck, and disconnected from your authentic self. Letting go of fear-based actions is an act of liberation. It's a declaration that you are no longer willing to let fear run your life. You are choosing courage, trust, and alignment instead. And in that choice, you reclaim your power, your peace, and your path. The idea that you are enough is both simple and revolutionary. It's a truth that often feels out of reach in a world that constantly pushes us to do more, achieve more, and be more. From an early age, we are surrounded by messages that suggest we need to earn our worthiness through success, appearance, relationships, or the approval of others. But the deeper truth is this: you don't have to prove your worth. You don't have to hustle for your value. You are enough exactly as you are, right here and right now. Embracing this truth doesn't mean you have nothing to strive for or that you should stop growing. Growth and ambition are beautiful parts of life. But knowing you are enough means understanding that your worth is not conditional on external achievements or validation. It means recognizing that you are inherently valuable just by being you. This worth isn't something you can lose, and it isn't something others have the power to take away. You are enough does not mean you are perfect. It means you are whole, even in your imperfections. It's easy to believe we'll feel enough when we fix certain parts of ourselves, when we're thinner, more accomplished, more confident, or in the perfect relationship. But this way of thinking traps us in an endless cycle of striving and self-criticism. Perfection isn't the goal, authenticity is. Being enough is about showing up as you are, embracing the messy, vulnerable, human parts of yourself, and knowing that those parts are just as worthy of love and acceptance as the polished ones. There's a quiet strength in recognizing that you are enough. When you stop chasing external validation, you reclaim your energy and focus. You begin to act from a place of self-respect rather than fear or desperation. Decisions become clearer because they're no longer clouded by the need to please others or measure up to impossible standards. You start setting boundaries not out of spite, but out of a deep understanding that your time, energy, and peace are precious. Believing you are enough also changes how you handle failure and criticism. Instead of letting setbacks define you, you start seeing them as moments of growth. Instead of internalizing criticism as proof that you're not good enough, you recognize it as someone else's perspective, one that doesn't diminish your worth. Knowing you are enough doesn't shield you from pain or disappointment, but it gives you a steady foundation to return to when life gets hard. This truth also transforms your relationships. When you believe you are enough, you stop seeking love and approval from people who can't or won't give it. You stop overextending yourself to earn affection or sacrificing your needs to keep others comfortable. Instead, you show up in relationships from a place of wholeness, allowing for deeper, more authentic connections. You attract people who see your worth because you see it first. Believing you are enough is not just an individual journey, it's an active resistance against a culture that profits from our insecurities. It's refusing to buy into the lie that you need to be fixed or that you're only valuable if you meet certain criteria. It's saying no to the endless pressure to compare yourself to others and yes to celebrating the unique, unrepeatable person you are. The journey to embracing this truth is not always linear. There will be days when you doubt it, moments when old patterns resurface, and times when the noise of the world feels louder than your inner voice. That's okay. The key is to keep returning to this truth over and over again with compassion for yourself. It's a practice, not a destination. You are enough doesn't mean you won't ever face struggles or shortcomings. It means those struggles and shortcomings don't diminish your worth. It means you can approach life with the confidence that you are whole, lovable, and capable just as you are. It's a declaration that your worth isn't conditional, negotiable, or up for debate. It is yours simply because you exist. Inviting reciprocity is about creating a space where mutual respect, understanding, and generosity flow naturally between you and others. It is the recognition that relationships are not one-sided transactions, but dynamic exchanges that nourish both parties. Reciprocity is not about keeping score or expecting something in return for every act of kindness or generosity. Rather, it's about cultivating a balance of give and take, where both individuals are free to offer and receive in a way that feels authentic and fulfilling. At the heart of reciprocity lies the understanding that you are worthy of receiving as much as you are capable of giving. So often we focus on what we can do for others, how we can help, support, or fix things. This is important, of course, but it's equally essential to recognize that receiving is not a sign of weakness or selfishness. It is an acknowledgement of your own value and your ability to accept support, care, and love. In inviting reciprocity, you open the door to being nourished, supported, and uplifted by others just as you offer those same things to them. The idea of giving and receiving in balance doesn't mean expecting immediate or equal returns. Reciprocity is a flow, a give and take that isn't always linear or immediate. Sometimes the act of giving may not be met with a direct return, and that's okay. What matters is the intention behind the act and the willingness to offer what you can in the spirit of generosity. When you allow yourself to give freely, you create an environment where others feel comfortable doing the same. It's about creating relationships where both people are willing to give without fear of being depleted or taken advantage of, and where both feel safe and encouraged to receive. Reciprocity isn't limited to material or tangible exchanges. It's about the emotional and psychological energy we invest in one another. If you are always the one who listens, who supports, or who makes others feel seen and heard, there comes a point when you must allow others to do the same for you. Emotional reciprocity is just as vital as practical reciprocity. When you invite reciprocity in your relationships, you begin to honor your emotional needs as much as you honor others. This creates a cycle of mutual care and understanding that deepens connections and fosters a sense of belonging. Inviting reciprocity also involves setting healthy boundaries. If you're constantly giving without receiving or receiving without giving, you may start to feel drained or unappreciated. This imbalance can lead to resentment or burnout. By setting clear boundaries around what you can offer and what you need in return, you create an environment where both parties are encouraged to contribute in ways that honor their capacities and desires. Boundaries are not walls that block reciprocity, they are the foundation that allows it to thrive. At times, inviting reciprocity requires vulnerability. It asks you to let go of the fear of rejection or the feeling that you are burdening others by asking for help or support. It requires you to believe that your needs are just as valid as anyone else's. Being open to receiving, whether it's help with a task, emotional support, or even a simple gesture of kindness, requires a willingness to be vulnerable enough to accept what others offer without guilt or shame. Vulnerability in this context is not weakness, it is strength. It is the courage to be open to connection and to trust that it's okay to ask for and receive what you need. In relationships where reciprocity is invited, there is a shared sense of appreciation and respect. Both parties recognize the value of what each person brings to the table, whether it's time, care, understanding, or expertise. You honor one another by acknowledging the gifts each person offers, and by making space for those gifts to be reciprocated in ways that feel genuine and heartfelt. When reciprocity is present, it creates a dynamic where both people feel seen, heard, and valued not just for what they give, but for who they are. The beauty of reciprocity is that it invites a deeper sense of connection. It moves beyond transactional interactions into something more meaningful. It fosters relationships that are built on mutual respect, trust, and understanding. When we invite reciprocity into our lives, we make space for relationships that nourish and sustain us, creating a balance of give and take that feels fulfilling, energizing, and authentic. It's not about keeping tabs or counting favors, it's about creating an environment where both giving and receiving flow naturally with grace and ease, and where both parties feel valued and cared for. This kind of reciprocity enriches our lives and our relationships, fostering deeper connections that are rooted in love, respect, and mutual support. Inviting reciprocity is about fostering balanced, mutually respectful relationships where both giving and receiving are embraced with authenticity and generosity. It involves recognizing your own worth and allowing yourself to receive as much as you give. This balance is not about keeping score, but about creating a flow of support, care, and understanding. Healthy reciprocity includes both material and emotional exchanges where vulnerability, boundaries, and respect thrive. By inviting reciprocity, you deepen connections, ensure that both your needs and contributions are honored, and build relationships rooted in trust, care, and mutual appreciation.